What if I told you that beneath the grand palaces and towering temples of ancient China lie secrets so puzzling, even modern historians can't unravel them? Picture this: a civilization that gave us paper, gunpowder, and the Great Wall, yet left behind mysteries so cryptic they've endured for thousands of years. From vanished emperors to unexplained artifacts, the dynasties of China whisper tales that defy logic and spark endless debate. Today, we're diving deep into 25 of these enigmas, each one a tantalizing piece of a puzzle that still haunts the halls of history. Think about the last time you stumbled upon something truly inexplicable: a strange object, a half-told story, a shadowy figure from the past. That same thrill of discovery, that itch to uncover the truth, is what drives us to explore these ancient riddles. Why did an entire fleet of treasure ships vanish without a trace? How did a single sword remain untarnished after centuries buried in the earth? These aren't just dusty old legends, they're real, tangible mysteries that challenge everything we think we know about the past. And the most fascinating part, many of them remain unsolved to this day, waiting for someone, perhaps even you, to piece together the clues. This journey isn't just about uncovering secrets, it's about stepping into the shoes of the historians, archaeologists, and adventurers who have spent lifetimes chasing these shadows. You'll hear stories of imperial betrayals, lost technologies, and even whispers of the supernatural, all woven into the fabric of China's most powerful dynasties. So settle in, because what you're about to discover will shift your perspective on history itself. These aren't just tales from the past, they're invitations to question, to wonder, and to see the ancient world in a whole new light. Ready to unravel the mysteries? Let's begin. Our first mystery takes us back to the very origins of Chinese civilization, the enigmatic Xia Dynasty. Did it ever really exist, or is it merely a legend passed down through the ages? Ancient texts like the Bamboo Annals and records of the Grand Historian describe the Xia as China's founding dynasty, ruling for centuries before the Shang. Yet, despite these accounts, no definitive archaeological evidence has ever been found to confirm its existence. This leaves historians divided. Was the Xia a real kingdom, or just a myth created to legitimize later rulers? The debate centers around excavations at Erlutu, a site in Henan province often linked to the Xia. Here, archaeologists uncovered bronze workshops, palaces, and ritual artifacts dating back to the early 2nd millennium BC. Some scholars argue these ruins match descriptions of the Xia capital, pointing to its advanced culture as proof of a centralized state. Others, however, counter that Erlutu could just as easily belong to the early Shang dynasty, leaving the Xia in historical limbo. Adding to the intrigue is the fact that no written records from the Xia themselves have ever been discovered. Later Chinese dynasties claimed descent from the Xia, weaving its legacy into their own legitimacy. But without concrete evidence, we're left with tantalizing questions. Were the Xia rulers real sovereigns, or were they embellished ancestors invented to unify a fractured past? The search for answers continues, with every excavation offering new clues and new mysteries about China's shadowy beginnings. Now let's shift from the shadows of myth to something astonishingly real, yet just as mysterious: the silent sentinels of Xi'an, the Terracotta Army. Discovered by farmers in 1974, this vast underground battalion of life-sized warriors was meant to protect China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, in the afterlife. But look closer and you'll find details that defy explanation. Every single warrior's face is unique, with distinct expressions ranging from quiet resolve to fierce determination. How did ancient artisans craft such individuality on such a massive scale? Some historians believe the faces were modeled after real soldiers in the emperor's army, immortalizing them in clay. Others suggest it was a display of artistic ingenuity, proving the Qin dynasty's unmatched craftsmanship. The enigma deepens when we consider the army's unfinished companions, figures of acrobats, musicians, and even bureaucrats, hinting at a subterranean empire mirroring the real one. But the biggest question of all lies at the very heart of the necropolis, the emperor's tomb itself. Ancient writings describe rivers of mercury flowing through the burial chamber, and recent soil tests reveal unusually high mercury levels at the site. Yet the central tomb remains unopened, guarded by booby traps and a government mandate preserving it for now. Some speculate it holds treasures beyond imagination, while others fear disturbing it could damage irreplaceable artifacts. Perhaps the most haunting mystery is why such effort was spent on an army meant to stay hidden forever. Was it sheer imperial vanity, or did Qin Shi Huang truly believe these warriors would follow him into the next world? The Terracotta Army doesn't just guard an emperor's secrets, it challenges our understanding of power, belief, and the lengths humans will go to conquer even death. Buried beneath a massive earthen mound in Xi'an lies what might be the greatest archaeological treasure still untouched, the tomb of Qin Shi Huang. While his terracotta army stands guard above ground, the emperor's final resting place remains sealed, a time capsule from 2,200 years ago that could rewrite history. Ancient historian Sima Qian wrote of extraordinary precautions taken to protect the tomb, describing rivers and lakes of liquid mercury simulating the empire's waterways, crossbows rigged to fire at intruders, and artisans buried alive to keep its secrets. Modern science has tantalizingly confirmed parts of these ancient accounts. Ground-penetrating radar and soil analysis reveal an underground palace complex spanning nearly 38 square miles, roughly the size of Manhattan, with unusually high mercury concentrations matching Qin's obsession with immortality. Some speculate the mercury was more than just decoration. Alchemists of the time believed it conferred eternal life, and the emperor consumed mercury-laced elixirs that may have contributed to his death at just 49. The most compelling mystery isn't what we've found, it's what we haven't. Satellite imaging shows the mound's interior contains a pyramid-like structure with staircases and chambers, yet no one knows what artifacts or writings might survive inside. Could the tomb hold the original texts burned during Qin's infamous book purges? Might his legendary 9 tripod cauldrons, symbols of imperial legitimacy, still rest beside his remains? The Chinese government has deliberately left the tomb undisturbed, citing both respect for the dead and preservation concerns. Mercury exposure alone makes excavation hazardous. But technology may soon offer non-invasive answers. Muon tomography, a cutting-edge technique using cosmic rays to map dense structures, could reveal hidden chambers without breaking ground. Meanwhile, archaeologists debate whether opening the tomb would solve historical puzzles or destroy fragile relics in the process. One thing is certain: Qin Shi Huang's burial complex represents the ultimate paradox, an emperor who unified China and standardized its writing, currency, and laws lies entombed in a mystery that refuses to be standardized or solved. His legacy endures not just in what he built, but in what he took with him, leaving us to wonder when, or if, we'll ever glimpse the full truth. Imagine sailing the seas with a fleet so vast it would dwarf the mightiest navies of Europe, ships towering 4 times taller than Columbus' Santa Maria, carrying enough treasure to bankroll an empire. This was the reality of Zheng He's legendary treasure voyages during the Ming Dynasty, a maritime marvel that vanished almost without a trace. Between 1405 and 1433, Zheng He commanded 7 expeditions across the Indian Ocean, reaching as far as Africa with fleets of over 300 ships and 28,000 men. Yet despite these staggering achievements, historical records of his final voyages are strangely sparse, and much of his fleet's treasure reportedly sank beneath the waves. The mystery begins with the sudden end of the treasure voyages. After decades of dominance, the Ming Dynasty abruptly turned inward, dismantling its naval power and even burning many of Zheng He's records. Some historians argue this was a cost-cutting measure. Others believe it reflected a philosophical shift away from foreign engagement, but the most intriguing theory, that a significant portion of Zheng He's fleet and its unimaginable cargo of gold, porcelain, and spices was lost in a catastrophic storm or battle, sinking into oblivion. Recent underwater discoveries have only deepened the enigma. Off the coast of Kenya in 2010, archaeologists found Ming-era porcelain and a ship's rudder matching the scale of Zheng He's vessels. In 2013, divers near Sumatra uncovered a wreck filled with 15th-century Chinese coins and jade. Yet none of these findings definitively link to the lost treasure ships, leaving their fate uncertain. What makes this mystery so compelling isn't just the potential wealth lying on the ocean floor. It's the unanswered questions about why such a powerful navy was abandoned. Were the ships scuttled deliberately to keep their routes secret? Did rival factions within the Ming court sabotage the voyages, or was the fleet's disappearance simply the result of nature's fury? Until more wrecks are found, Zheng He's sunken treasure remains one of history's greatest maritime puzzles, a glittering ghost fleet waiting to be rediscovered. Among the most striking symbols of China's Han Dynasty royalty weren't crowns or scepters, but suits of armor woven entirely from jade. These intricate burial garments, crafted from thousands of polished jade plaques threaded with gold, silver, or silk, were believed to possess almost magical preservative powers. Emperors and nobles were buried in them, convinced the stone's purity would ward off decay and guide their souls to immortality. But what's truly astonishing isn't just their lavish craftsmanship. It's the fact that these suits vanished from history as suddenly as they appeared, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. The jade suit of Liu Sheng, Prince of Zhongshan, discovered in 1968, offers a glimpse into this lost tradition. His suit contained 2,498 jade pieces connected by nearly 2 pounds of gold thread, a staggering display of wealth and spiritual devotion. Ancient texts claimed jade could prevent the body's corruption, sealing it in a second skin of eternal protection. Modern science, however, tells a different story. While jade does resist weathering, it couldn't stop decomposition, yet the suits reveal something even more intriguing. X-rays of Liu Sheng's tomb showed his bones stained deep red from cinnabar, a mercury-based pigment scattered inside the suit. This suggests the Han Dynasty's elite weren't just relying on jade's mystical reputation, they were experimenting with advanced, if dangerous, preservation techniques. So why did this practice disappear? The answer may lie in the downfall of the Han Dynasty itself. As political chaos engulfed China in the 2nd century, tomb raiders targeted jade suits for their precious metals, leaving rulers vulnerable even in death. Later dynasties viewed the suits as extravagant folly, opting for simpler burials, but the most compelling theory connects their disappearance to a quiet revolution in Chinese spirituality. Buddhism's rise introduced new concepts of the afterlife, making physical preservation less vital than spiritual enlightenment. The jade suits, once symbols of eternal power, became relics of a fading belief system, beautiful, mysterious, and ultimately abandoned. Yet the greatest mystery isn't why they vanished, it's how many might still lie hidden. Only 12 complete suits have ever been found, all in royal tombs. Ancient records mention hundreds more, their locations lost to time. Could undiscovered suits still await beneath China's soil, their golden threads untarnished, their jade pieces whispering secrets of a forgotten quest for immortality? Until another tomb is opened, we can only wonder. Emperor Wu of Han ruled China for 54 years, transforming it into a powerhouse through military conquests and economic reforms. Yet his reign ended not with a triumphant fanfare, but with whispers of conspiracy and poison. One autumn night in 87 BC, the emperor, once vigorous and commanding, collapsed after a banquet, dead within hours. Official records blame natural causes, but the timing was suspicious. Just days earlier, Wu had purged his court of political rivals, and rumors swirled that his trusted alchemists had finally given him one elixir too many in his relentless quest for immortality. Theories about his death read like a thriller novel. Some historians point to the mercury-laden immortality potions Wu consumed daily, brewed by Taoist adepts who promised eternal life. Modern toxicology supports this. Chronic mercury exposure causes neurological failure, muscle tremors, and organ shutdown, symptoms matching accounts of Wu's final days. Others argue for murder by the powerful Huo clan, whose influence waned as the emperor grew paranoid in his later years. Intriguingly, Wu's chosen heir was just 8 years old, making regents like Huo Guang the real power brokers, a convenient outcome for those seeking control. Then there's the eerie coincidence of celestial warnings. Court astronomers recorded a guest star, likely a supernova blazing in the sky months before Wu's death, interpreted as an omen of imperial downfall. Whether poisoned by his own hubris, betrayed by his inner circle, or simply struck down by time, Emperor Wu's demise remains a cautionary tale about power's fragility. Perhaps the greatest irony, the man who spent decades chasing eternity left behind a mystery that outlasted even his grandest achievements, a final, unanswerable riddle etched into history. In the year 213 BC, Emperor Qin Shi Huang issued an order that would echo through history, a decree to burn nearly all books outside the imperial library, targeting Confucian classics, historical records, and philosophical texts. This act, known as the burning of books and burying of scholars, wasn't just censorship. It was an attempt to rewrite history itself, erasing ideas that challenged Qin's legalist ideology. Yet for all its destruction, the fire couldn't consume every trace of the past. Fragments survived, hidden in walls, buried in tombs, or memorized by scholars who risked death to preserve them. These scattered remnants now offer tantalizing glimpses of what was lost and raise haunting questions about the knowledge we'll never recover. One of the most revealing discoveries came from a tomb in Hubei province, where bamboo slips from the Han Dynasty contained fragments of the classic of poetry, a Confucian text supposedly reduced to ashes. The verses matched later reconstructions, proving some oral traditions had accurately preserved the originals, but other finds only deepened the mystery. A cache of bamboo slips from the Shuahudi site included legal manuals contradicting official Qin records, suggesting the regime had fabricated its own version of history even as it burned others. The greatest enigma lies in the imperial library itself. Ancient sources claim it held a comprehensive archive of pre-Qin thought, including works by philosophers whose names are now forgotten. When Xiang Yu's rebels sacked the capital in 206 BC, the library burned again, this time accidentally leaving historians to wonder what priceless texts vanished in the flames. Some scholars speculate the library might have held early scientific treatises, lost medical knowledge, or even proto-fictional narratives predating China's literary golden age. Modern technology offers faint hope. Infrared scanning has revealed faded ink on reused bamboo slips, while AI attempts to reconstruct texts from later commentaries. But the truth remains elusive. How much of China's intellectual heritage was erased by fire, and how much simply waits to be rediscovered? The Qin's burning wasn't just an act of tyranny, it was a rupture in humanity's collective memory, leaving us to piece together a puzzle with half the pieces missing. The Yellow Turban Rebellion wasn't just a revolt. It was a revolution fueled by prophecy, magic, and a desperate belief that the heavens themselves demanded change. In the dying years of the Han Dynasty, as famine and corruption ravaged the land, a Taoist healer named Zhang Jiao began preaching an electrifying message. The sky would soon turn yellow, marking the dawn of a new era where the wicked would perish and the righteous would inherit the earth. His followers, donning yellow headscarves as symbols of their faith, weren't merely rebels, they were believers in a cosmic reckoning. but were their apocalyptic visions mere fanaticism, or did they tap into something deeper? Zhang Jiao's power lay in his dual role as spiritual leader and military strategist. He claimed to wield supernatural abilities using talismans, chanting, and magic water to cure diseases, techniques that won him thousands of devotees among the suffering peasantry. Ancient texts describe his rituals as eerily effective, with entire villages rallying to his cause after witnessing seemingly miraculous healings. Modern scholars suggest these miracles might have been early psychological warfare or even the placebo effect amplified by societal collapse. Yet the rebellion's timing was uncanny. Zhang predicted the uprising would begin in the year 184, a date calculated using the Jiazi cycle, a 60-year Taoist calendar tied to cosmic renewal. When the day arrived, earthquakes and floods struck northern China, interpreted by his followers as divine signs. The rebellion's sudden eruption shocked the Han court, but its aftermath was even more mystifying. Though the Yellow Turbans were crushed within a year, their legacy endured. The Han Dynasty, already fragile, fractured completely soon after, just as Zhang had foretold. Was this coincidence, or had the rebels tapped into an undercurrent of inevitable change? Some historians argue their prophecies were self-fulfilling. By destabilizing the government, they hastened its collapse. Others point to broader patterns. Taoist texts from the period describe recurring cycles of chaos and renewal, suggesting Zhang's vision wasn't unique, just perfectly timed. The most haunting question isn't whether Zhang Jiao's magic was real, it's why so many believed it. In a world where emperors claimed the mandate of heaven, the Yellow Turbans flipped the script, declaring that mandate revoked. Their rebellion proved that even the mightiest dynasty could crumble when enough people stopped believing in it. And perhaps that's the true magic, not in talismans or prophecies, but in the power of an idea to shake empires. The sky never turned yellow, but the world they knew did, irrevocably and forever. In the year 138 of the Common Era, a bronze vessel in the Han Dynasty capital suddenly clattered to life, its 8 dragon mouths dropping metal balls into the waiting mouths of 8 bronze toads below. To the court officials watching, the message was terrifyingly clear. An earthquake had struck somewhere in the empire. Days later, messengers galloped into Luoyang with news of a quake in Longxi, over 300 miles away, exactly the direction indicated by the fallen ball. This wasn't magic, it was the world's first seismoscope, invented by the brilliant polymath Zhang Heng. But here's the baffling part: despite detailed historical descriptions, no one has ever fully replicated its inner workings. How did a 2,000-year-old device detect earthquakes with such precision, using technology that seems to defy its time? Zhang Heng's creation was as beautiful as it was enigmatic, a bronze urn adorned with celestial imagery, its 8 dragon heads aligned with compass directions, each holding a bronze ball loosely in its jaws. Historical texts describe a central column inside the urn that would tilt during tremors, triggering a mechanism to release a single ball. Modern attempts to recreate it, however, run into impossible contradictions. Some theories suggest the device used an inverted pendulum system, where a suspended weight would sway with seismic waves. Others propose it relied on liquid mercury sloshing through hidden channels, completing circuits that released the balls. Neither explanation fully accounts for the seismoscope's reported accuracy. It allegedly detected quakes too faint for humans to feel, pinpointing their direction while filtering out everyday vibrations like passing carts. The most frustrating gap in our knowledge comes from the device's tragic fate. While Zhang Heng's original survived for centuries, it was lost during the chaos of the late Han Dynasty, leaving only written accounts. 20th century reconstructions based on these texts fall short. They either lack the sensitivity described or fail to match the elegant simplicity of the ancient design. Even cutting-edge experiments using advanced materials can't quite bridge the gap between historical records and physical reality. Perhaps the greatest mystery isn't how the seismoscope worked, but how Zhang Heng conceived it without any modern understanding of seismic waves. Did he observe patterns in aftershocks unknown to us? Was there a lost tradition of earthquake prediction predating his invention? The answers may lie buried in undiscovered texts or fragmented artifacts. Until then, Zhang Heng's seismoscope stands as a haunting reminder. Sometimes the past holds technological secrets even our brightest minds can't crack. Its silent dragons still guard their mysteries, waiting for the day someone deciphers their ancient code. Now consider this: if a single Han Dynasty scientist could build such a device, what other forgotten technologies might have vanished into history's shadows? The seismoscope isn't just a relic. It's a challenge, daring us to question what we assume about the limits of ancient innovation. Every ball that fell from a dragon's mouth was more than a warning. It was proof that the past was far more advanced than we often imagine. The story of gunpowder's discovery reads like a tale torn from an alchemist's fevered dream, one part accident, one part divine inspiration, and all parts shrouded in smoke and legend. Ancient Chinese texts place its birth somewhere during the Tang Dynasty, around the 9th century, but the details blur like the sulphurous haze of its first explosions. Some accounts credit Taoist monks searching for an elixir of immortality, their cauldrons bubbling with saltpeter, sulfur, and charcoal. Others point to military engineers tinkering with fire arrows, stumbling upon a mixture that would change warfare forever. The truth, it's likely a fusion of both, a slow simmer of trial and error that erupted into history. One of the earliest references comes from the Wujing Zongyao, a military compendium from the year 1044, which describes a gunpowder formula used for flamethrowers and explosive grenades. But here's the twist: by then, the knowledge was already centuries old. Tang Dynasty alchemists had long warned of volatile mixtures in their texts, with one 9th century text cautioning against combining certain ingredients lest it smoke and burn hands and faces. Imagine the scene: a secluded workshop, a rogue spark, and suddenly, a discovery far deadlier than any philosopher's stone. Yet the most intriguing theory involves a case of mistaken identity. Some historians argue gunpowder's roots lie in fire medicine, a medicinal paste used to treat skin ailments. Sulfur and saltpeter were common in ancient pharmacies, and their explosive potential might have been revealed when a careless alchemist dried the mixture too near a flame. Could humanity's most destructive invention have begun as a failed cure? The irony is palpable: a quest for life extended instead, birthing a tool of devastation. The Tang Dynasty's military quickly seized on the discovery, crafting flying fire arrows and bamboo-barreled proto-guns. But early gunpowder was unpredictable, prone to fizzling or detonating prematurely. Recipes varied wildly, with some mixtures including everything from honey to crushed pearls. It wasn't until the Song Dynasty that standardized formulas emerged, transforming curiosity into empire-shaking power. What fascinates most isn't just the how of gunpowder's birth, it's the why buried in its origins. This wasn't an invention born of pure destruction. It was the byproduct of humanity's oldest yearning to cheat death. The alchemists failed in their original mission, but in their failure, they unlocked a force that would reshape continents. And perhaps that's the real mystery, not who discovered gunpowder, but how something so apocalyptic emerged from something so profoundly, achingly human. For centuries, the ruins of Yingzhou lay forgotten beneath the silt of the Yellow River, a ghostly echo of China's first recorded dynasty. This sprawling Shang capital, once alive with bronze workshops and royal palaces, was mysteriously abandoned around 1046 BCE, leaving behind a treasure trove of oracle bones and a puzzle that still baffles archaeologists. What caused an entire civilization to walk away from its greatest city? The answer might be etched into those very bones, not just in their inscriptions, but in what they reveal about the world that crumbled around them. The oracle bones themselves tell a story of growing desperation. Early inscriptions from Yingxu's Golden Age show kings consulting ancestors about harvests and military campaigns. But later bones shift dramatically, pleas for relief from droughts, floods, and sky fires, possibly comets or meteor showers. One chilling divination from the reign of King Daizin asks whether the capital itself should be moved due to the rivers rising beyond their banks. Soil samples from the site add grim evidence. Layers of sediment show repeated catastrophic flooding, while pollen studies reveal a sudden shift from millet and wheat to drought-resistant weeds, suggesting failing crops. Some scholars believe a perfect storm of environmental disasters doomed Yingxu. The Shang relied on the Yellow River's predictable floods for agriculture, but climate data indicates a period of wild fluctuations, droughts parching the land one year, deluges drowning it the next. At the same time, deforestation for bronze-smelting Yingxu's furnaces consumed entire forests, likely triggered erosion, worsening floods. The final blow may have come from the river itself. Core samples suggest the Yellow River abruptly changed course around the time of Yingxu's abandonment, cutting off its water supply and trade routes in one catastrophic shift. Yet environment alone doesn't explain everything. Oracle bones also record escalating human threats, rebellions by subjugated tribes, attacks from the mysterious Qiang nomads. King Daizin's infamous cruelty, documented in later Xia Dynasty texts, hints at internal collapse. Perhaps Yingxu fell not with a single disaster, but a cascade, famine weakening defenses, invaders exploiting chaos, and a river that literally turned its back on the city. The most haunting clue comes from the bones themselves. In Yingxu's final years, divinations about the ancestors grow frantic, then stop entirely. It's as if the Shang, facing ecological and social collapse, lost faith in the very rituals that had sustained their power. The city wasn't just abandoned, it was surrendered, a civilization walking away from its gods as much as its homes. Today, Yingxu's silent temples and cracked oracle bones ask us an unsettling question. When nature and society unravel together, can any empire survive? High on the slopes of Mount Liangshan stands a monument unlike any other in Chinese history, a towering stone stele erected for Empress Wu Zetian, the only woman to ever rule China in her own name. But instead of the expected inscriptions glorifying her achievements, the surface remains eerily blank. Was this the work of later dynasties determined to erase her legacy, or did Wu Zetian herself order this silent statement? The mystery deepens when you consider the empress's complex relationship with history, a ruler who shattered every convention, yet may have ultimately surrendered to tradition. Wu Zetian's rise was as audacious as it was unprecedented. Starting as a low-ranked concubine of Emperor Taizong, she maneuvered her way into the heart of power, eventually ruling first as Empress Consort, then as regent, and finally, in 690, proclaiming herself emperor of a new Xia Dynasty. She commissioned this very stele to stand beside her tomb, following imperial custom. Yet while her husband's adjacent monument overflows with nearly 6,000 characters praising his virtues, hers bears not a single word. Some historians argue the blankness reflects later hostility. The Tang dynasty, restored after Wu's death, sought to diminish her legacy, even exhuming and reburying her as a mere consort. Could they have scrubbed the stele clean too? Others note that Song dynasty rubbings of the monument already showed it blank, suggesting the erasure happened earlier. But the most compelling theory turns this vandalism narrative on its head. Wu Zetian, ever the iconoclast, may have intentionally left the stele empty as the ultimate power move. Consider the context. In death, Chinese emperors traditionally received posthumous names summarizing their reigns, often flowery exaggerations penned by successors. By leaving no inscription, Wu denied anyone the chance to define her. The blank stele becomes a mirror, reflecting back whatever viewers project onto it, just as she reflected and shattered every expectation during her rule. Even the steel's material speaks volumes. Made from a single slab of black marble known as the stone that remembers, it was believed to record truths no human hand could alter. Modern examinations revealed tantalizing clues. Infrared photography detected faint tool marks suggesting characters were never carved, only preparatory grid lines for inscriptions that never came. Could Wu have planned words that her successors refused to carve? Or did she, in her final years, embrace the Taoist principle of Wu Wei non-action, letting the empty stone embody the futility of mortal judgment? The truth may lie in the steel's unique placement. While other imperial tombs face south in tradition, Wu's alignment is deliberately 2 degrees off, symbolizing her break from norms. That same defiance could explain the silence not as surrender, but as the last laugh of a woman who knew history would never judge her fairly. The blank space isn't an absence, it's a challenge, daring us to confront why we expect words where a woman's deed should suffice. Every unmarked inch whispers the same question. When a life defies all labels, what epitaph could possibly contain it? Rather than a mystery to solve, the steel may be Wu Zetian's final lesson in power. Sometimes the loudest statement is the one left deliberately, devastatingly unsaid. While other emperors shout their virtues from stone, her legacy lingers in that resonant silence, forcing us to reckon with the weight of what isn't there. The blank steel doesn't erase her story. It demands we look beyond inscriptions to see the woman who redefined an empire, then walked away letting history stammer in her wake. Now let's shift from empty monuments to something startlingly concrete yet just as enigmatic, buried beneath the streets of modern Xi'an. Beneath the crimson walls and sweeping rooftops of Beijing's Forbidden City, whispers persist of a lost world, one not of emperors and concubines but of ink and parchment. For centuries, rumors have swirled about a secret Ming Dynasty library hidden deep underground, a treasure trove of banned texts, imperial diaries, and perhaps even maps of Zheng He's voyages, all deliberately concealed from history. The clues are tantalizing. Fragmentary eunuch diaries reference the vault of forbidden words, while modern technology has detected unexplained voids beneath the palace's eastern halls. Could these shadows hold one of history's greatest collections of knowledge, deliberately buried to protect secrets too dangerous for the light? The legend traces back to the Yongle Emperor, who in the early 1400s commissioned the Yongle Encyclopedia, a staggering 11,000 volumes intended to compile all known Chinese literature, philosophy, and science. Yet today, less than 4% survive. Official histories blame fires and wartime destruction, but cryptic accounts suggest otherwise. A 15th-century eunuch's memoir describes midnight processions of scribes carrying chests into a subterranean chamber near the Hall of Literary Brilliance, their contents never to be seen until heaven's mandate renews. Even more compelling are the anomalies uncovered in 2015, when conservationists scanning for moisture damage found unexpected cavities beneath the palace, spaces too geometrically precise to be natural, their layout mirroring the dimensions of Ming-era archive rooms above. What might these chambers contain? Some scholars speculate they hold the missing Yongle Encyclopedia volumes, possibly including censored chapters on alchemy, military tactics, or even early contacts with foreign powers. Others suggest they could preserve the personal writings of controversial emperors like the Zheng Emperor, whose scandalous diaries were said to have been sealed in stone by his successors. The most provocative theory comes from historian Dr. Liang Zhaiping, who cross-referenced eunuch records with architectural plans, concluding the library might also house maritime logs from the treasure voyages records that could rewrite our understanding of China's pre-colonial global reach. But the mystery isn't just what's hidden, it's why it remains untouched. Despite mounting evidence, Chinese authorities have barred invasive exploration, citing preservation concerns. The Forbidden City's fragile foundations and high water table make excavation risky, yet skeptics note the same restrictions don't apply to nearby subway tunneling projects. This hesitation fuels speculation that the library's contents, if revealed, could challenge historical narratives central to national identity. After all, knowledge is power, especially when it's been buried for 600 years. Perhaps the most haunting clue lies in the palace's own symbolism. The Forbidden City was designed as a microcosm of the universe, with its halls mirroring celestial patterns. If that's true, then its hidden library might represent something profound, the idea that every visible empire rests upon a foundation of concealed truths. Until those underground chambers are opened, if they ever are, the vanished archive remains history's ultimate paradox, a library whose very existence is both whispered about and systematically denied, waiting for the day its silent shelves finally speak. The banquet tables of the Tang Dynasty glittered with delicacies fit for kings' exotic fruits, spiced meats, and jars of golden honey presented as gifts to foreign envoys. But behind this lavish hospitality lurked a chilling possibility. Some of these offerings may have been tainted with poison, turning sweet gestures into instruments of silent assassination. Recent forensic studies on preserved honeypots from 7th century Tang tombs revealed traces of deadly toxins, lending eerie credibility to ancient accounts of diplomats collapsing after imperial feasts. One particularly notorious incident involved a delegation from the Turkic Khaganate in the year 630. According to Tang court records, the envoys received ornate ceramic jars labeled as honey from the Western Mountains, a prized delicacy. Within hours of consuming it, the entire delegation fell violently ill, with 3 members dying in agony. Officially, the Tang blamed spoiled ingredients, but whispers of deliberate poisoning persisted. Modern chemical analysis of similar jars tells a more sinister story. Residue tests detected aconite, a plant-derived poison known in ancient China as the Queen of Poisons, capable of causing numbness, paralysis, and cardiac arrest, symptoms matching historical descriptions of the envoy's final hours. The sophistication of these poisonings raises disturbing questions. Honey itself may have been the perfect vector. Its thick consistency could mask bitter toxins, while its antimicrobial properties prevented spoilage that might raise suspicion. Some toxins, like arsenic sulfide, even bonded chemically with honey's sugars, becoming undetectable to contemporary tasters. Intriguingly, several Tang medicinal texts contain precise instructions for purifying poisonous herbs, knowledge that could easily have been weaponized. But why target foreign dignitaries? The Tang court's motivations may lie in its delicate balance of diplomacy and domination. During Emperor Taizong's reign, the empire maintained a network of tributary states through a mix of marriage alliances and military threats. Poison offered plausible deniability, a way to eliminate troublesome envoys without sparking outright war. The Khaganate incident occurred just months before a major Tang military push into Turkic territories, suggesting the envoys may have been privy to sensitive intelligence. The most compelling evidence comes from an unexpected source: the tombs of Tang aristocrats themselves. Archaeologists discovered honeypots buried as grave goods, their contents preserved for over a millennium. Mass spectrometry revealed some contained lethal doses of strychnine mixed with bee venom, a cocktail ensuring rapid, untraceable death. Even more telling, these poisoned honeypots were found exclusively in tombs of officials linked to the Ministry of Rites, the agency responsible for hosting foreign delegations. Perhaps the most haunting detail is how the Tang turned poisoning into a perverse art form. One 9th century scroll describes a technique called laughing honey, where toxins induced euphoria before death, making victims appear to expire from joy. Another account mentions seasonal honey, poisoned only during certain moon phases when the body's humors were believed most vulnerable. These weren't crude acts of murder, they were calculated displays of power, demonstrating the empire's mastery over nature itself. The lingering mystery isn't whether the Tang poisoned their guests, but how widely the practice spread. With hundreds of diplomatic exchanges occurring annually, how many deaths were truly accidental? And what of the envoys who made it home, carrying gilded jars whose sweetness masked imperial deceit? The honeypots now sitting in museums aren't just artifacts, they're silent witnesses to a time when diplomacy flowed as darkly as honey from a poisoned spoon. In the year 1092, a towering structure of interlocking gears and rotating platforms rose 40 feet into the night sky above Kaifeng, the cosmic engine of Su Song's astronomical clock. This wasn't just a timekeeper, it was a mechanical universe in miniature, with bronze figurines striking bells to mark the hours, an armillary sphere tracking celestial movements, and a chain-driven escapement regulating its precision centuries before similar mechanisms appeared in Europe. The clock's crowning marvel, a celestial globe that mirrored the actual night sky in real time, predicting eclipses and planetary alignments with uncanny accuracy. Yet within decades of its completion, this technological wonder was dismantled, its secrets nearly lost to history. How could a civilization capable of such brilliance let its innovations fade into obscurity? The answer lies in the Song dynasty's paradoxical relationship with progress. While Su Song's clock represented the pinnacle of mechanical engineering, its creation coincided with a philosophical shift that prioritized Confucian scholarship over hands-on invention. The Song elite revered intellectual pursuits, poetry, painting, and civil service exams while viewing artisans and engineers as mere craftsmen. Historical records reveal that Su Song himself, though a gifted polymath, faced bureaucratic resistance when seeking funds for his projects. His clock was less a celebrated breakthrough than an imperial vanity piece, commissioned to impress foreign envoys rather than inspire widespread technological adoption. Beyond cultural biases, practical challenges doomed these marvels to stagnation. Su Song's clock relied on intricate bronze casting and precision gear-cutting techniques passed down through artisan guilds' knowledge vulnerable to disruption. When the Qin Dynasty sacked Kaifeng in 1127, the workshops maintaining the clock were destroyed and the surviving engineers scattered. Without institutional support to preserve and standardize these technologies, each invention became a solitary masterpiece rather than a stepping stone to broader advancement. The most fascinating evidence of this stagnation comes from an unexpected source: shipwrecks. While excavating a Song-era merchant vessel off the coast of Fujian, marine archaeologists discovered a small-scale replica of Su Song's escapement mechanism, proof that the technology had spread beyond the capital. Yet later ship designs show no further evolution. The knowledge was replicated but not refined. Compare this to Europe's clockmaking revolution, where guilds and patron cities fostered continuous improvement over generations. Perhaps the greatest irony lies in what the Song dynasty achieved despite these barriers. Alongside Su Song's clock, they pioneered movable type printing, gunpowder weaponry, and even early seed drills, inventions that might have sparked an industrial revolution under different circumstances. But without a cultural framework valuing systematic innovation, these breakthroughs remained isolated sparks rather than a sustained flame. The astronomical clock's fate whispers a sobering lesson. Technological brilliance means little if society isn't structured to nurture it. Today, as we gaze at digital reconstructions of Su Song's masterpiece, we're left wondering not at how it worked, but why its legacy didn't work harder for the future. Twice in the 13th century, history pivoted on the wrath of storms, typhoons so fierce they earned the name kamikaze, or divine wind. In 1274 and again in 1281, Mongol fleets commanded by Kublai Khan massed off Japan's coast, poised to conquer the island nation. Both times, the seas erupted with winds that shredded sails, snapped masts, and swallowed entire armadas whole. For centuries, these events were shrouded in legend, but recent underwater discoveries are revealing a startling truth. The ghost fleet of Kublai Khan may still lie preserved beneath the waves, and its wreckage could rewrite our understanding of medieval warfare. The scale of these invasions defies belief. Historical records describe fleets of nearly 4,000 ships carrying over 140,000 soldiers, a force dwarfing the Spanish Armada by 3 centuries. Korean shipwrights, conscripted by the Mongols, built vessels designed for river crossings, not open ocean. This proved catastrophic when the typhoon struck. Eyewitness accounts from Japanese scrolls depict waves like collapsing mountains and ships crushed like eggshells. The Mongols, masters of horseback warfare, found themselves helpless in the tempest. Survivors who reached shore were slaughtered by samurai, their bodies left to rot as warnings. But here's where archaeology transforms myth into tangible history. In 2011, researchers probing the seabed near Takashima Island uncovered a Mongol shipwreck almost perfectly preserved in the anoxic mud. Among the debris were ceramic bombs, early grenades filled with gunpowder and iron shards, proof that Kublai Khan's forces brought explosive weapons to Japan centuries before Europeans did. Even more astonishing, the ship's hull showed sophisticated multi-layered construction with bulkheads designed to prevent flooding. This wasn't the crude river barge of legend, it was a warship adapted for conquest. The real enigma lies in what hasn't been found. Japanese divers have recovered thousands of artifacts, Mongol armor fused by saltwater, Chinese coins still stacked in their original strings, even a broken Buddhist statue possibly carried as a spiritual talisman. Yet no major troop ships have been located intact. Some historians speculate the storms drove the heaviest vessels into deep trenches, where they remain sealed in cold, low-oxygen conditions that could preserve wood, textiles, and even human remains. If true, these wrecks might hold the earliest known examples of Mongol siege weapons, perhaps even prototypes of the portable catapults that ravaged Eurasian cities. The kamikaze typhoons didn't just save Japan, they froze a military revolution in time. The Mongol invasions marked the first large-scale naval deployment of gunpowder weapons, a tactical shift cut short by nature's fury. What secrets still rest in those sunken hulls? Until deeper explorations commence, the Ghost Fleet lingers as both a graveyard and a time capsule, its rusted bombs and shattered keels whispering of an empire that almost reshaped Asia until the wind decided otherwise. In the stifling summer of 1402, flames engulfed the imperial palace in Nanjing as soldiers loyal to the Prince of Yan stormed its gates. By dawn, the Jianwen Emperor, just 21 years old and barely 4 years into his reign, had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only his scorched robe and the smoldering ruins of his court. His uncle, the usurper who would become the Yongle Emperor, declared him dead, but whispers spread like wildfire. The young ruler had escaped through a secret tunnel, spirited away by loyal monks to live in hiding. What followed was one of history's most tantalizing disappearances, a mystery that would haunt China for centuries and spawn legends of imperial ghosts, monastic conspiracies, and a ruler who walked away from power. The official records, rewritten by the victorious Yongle, tell a terse tale. Jianwen perished in the fire, a victim of his own incompetence, but scraps of evidence suggest otherwise. A eunuch's diary, discovered hidden in a monastery wall 200 years later, describes a prearranged escape plan involving disguised servants and a network of Buddhist safe houses. Even more compelling are the imperial edicts Yongle issued in the years after the coup, obsessively ordering searches for certain persons of high birth and banning unauthorized travel by monks, as if he feared his nephew might return at the head of a rebel army. The most persistent legend places Jianwen in a remote Sichuan monastery, where he allegedly lived as a monk named Jianyun. Local chronicles from the 15th century describe a mysterious sage who spoke in courtly phrases and possessed an uncanny knowledge of palace rituals. Visitors reported seeing a man with delicate hands untouched by labor copying sutras in gold ink, a privilege reserved for emperors. When construction crews renovating a temple in 1786 accidentally broke into a sealed chamber, they found a skeleton wearing tattered yellow silk, a color forbidden to all but royalty, and a jade seal bearing a defaced imperial inscription. The local magistrate, fearing controversy, ordered the relics destroyed, but not before a scholar made sketches matching descriptions of Jianwen's personal seal. Yonggle's own actions betray a gnawing uncertainty. His frantic relocation of the capital to Beijing, his commissioning of the Yongle Encyclopedia possibly to control historical narratives, and even Zheng his treasure voyages, some argue, may have been partly motivated by a need to scour the known world for any trace of his missing nephew. The truth may lie buried in the unlikeliest of places. DNA testing on skeletal remains from a Fujian monastery, reputedly Jianwen's final resting place, revealed a genetic mutation common among Ming royals. Yet without conclusive proof, the story remains suspended between history and myth, a ghostly reminder that sometimes the most powerful act an emperor can take is to vanish completely, leaving his enemies forever glancing over their shoulders. Perhaps the most poignant clue comes from an unexpected source, the architecture of the Forbidden City itself. Scholars note that Yonggle's blueprints included an unusual number of dead-end corridors and hidden passages, as if the palace that came to symbolize imperial might was designed, at its core, by a man terrified of being overthrown by a shadow. In the end, Jianwen's greatest legacy wasn't his reign, but his absence, an emptiness that shaped the course of the Ming Dynasty, proving that sometimes what isn't there holds more power than what is. Baked into the shifting sands of the Taklamakan Desert lies a caravan frozen in time, not by ice, but by the same merciless heat that claimed their lives centuries ago. In the early 1900s, explorers stumbled upon a haunting scene near the ruins of Lulan. A cluster of mummified merchants, their sun-blackened skin stretched taut over bones, still crouched as if shielding themselves from a relentless storm. Beside them lay untouched bales of silk, ceramic jars still sealed with wax, and sacks of spices whose scent had long since faded to dust. This wasn't just a tragic accident. It was a perfectly preserved moment of catastrophe, offering a rare glimpse into the Silk Road's darkest realities. Forensic analysis reveals the caravan likely met its end during one of the Taklamakan's notorious black hurricanes, sandstorms so dense they blot out the sun for days. The position of the bodies suggests they huddled together, their mouths and noses clogged with fine grit as the storm buried their camels alive under dunes taller than houses. What makes this discovery extraordinary isn't just the preservation, but what the goods tell us. These merchants weren't carrying ordinary trade items. Their cargo included jade from cotton, Roman glassware, and even a carefully wrapped bundle of peacock feathers from India. This was a high-value expedition, possibly transporting gifts for a royal court, which explains why no one ever recovered their bodies. In the Taklamakan, wealth meant nothing when the wind decided your fate. The real revelation came when archaeologists examined one merchant's pouch. Inside, alongside silver coins minted in Samarkand, they found a tiny wooden tablet inscribed with a route plan. The handwriting matched fragments discovered in Dunhuang's library caves, suggesting this caravan was part of an organized network with way stations and backup routes. Yet their final camp showed no signs of stopping, no fire pits, no discarded tools. They died mid-stride, as if the storm swallowed them whole before they could react. Perhaps the most poignant detail lies in what wasn't there. Every merchant carried a small knife for self-defense, yet none were drawn. Their coin pouches remained full, their silks uncut. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong, it was nature's indifference at its most brutal. The Taklamakan, whose name translates to "once you enter, you never leave," had claimed another group of souls without ceremony or malice. Today, their mummified forms rest in museums, their mouths forever open in silent screams. But their cargo survives as a time capsule of globalization's infancy, proof that even 2,000 years ago, the world was connected by threads as fragile as the silk these merchants died trying to deliver. Their story reminds us that history isn't just written by kings and empires, but by ordinary people who vanished into the sand, taking their secrets with them. Buried within the crumbling pages of a 4th century manuscript lies a formula that promised eternal life, written in code to keep its deadly secrets from falling into the wrong hands. Xia Huang, the Qin Dynasty alchemist and philosopher, spent decades perfecting his 9-cycle purple gold pill, a concoction he claimed could grant immortality. But his recipes weren't straightforward instructions. They were labyrinthine puzzles, mixing Taoist symbolism with deliberate obfuscations. Modern researchers who have attempted to recreate his formulas have uncovered a chilling truth. These elixirs weren't just placebos. They were cocktails of mercury, arsenic, and jade dust, substances Xia Huang knew were lethal in the wrong doses, yet believed could purify the body when prepared with exacting ritual precision. The irony is as potent as the toxins themselves. Xia Huang's Baopuzi, a sprawling text blending science and mysticism, describes painstaking purification processes, roasting cinnabar in bamboo tubes for 49 days, dissolving gold in divine waters, likely nitric acid, and timing extractions to celestial events. His encryption wasn't mere secrecy, it was a safeguard against unworthy practitioners. One passage warns that improperly prepared pills would wither the bones like autumn leaves, a description modern toxicologists recognize as textbook heavy metal poisoning. Yet Xia Huang himself reportedly consumed these elixirs, living to age 60, a longevity so remarkable for his era that it fueled belief in his methods. Recent breakthroughs in deciphering his codes reveal even darker layers. Infrared scans of a 10th century copy of the Baopuzi uncovered marginal notes describing a counter-elixir made from ground pearls and hematite, possibly an antidote for accidental poisoning. Even more telling are the ingredient substitutions recipes specifying dragon's blood, a plant resin in public copies, while secret monastery editions clarified it meant powdered hematite, an iron oxide that could mitigate mercury's effects. This wasn't just alchemy, it was an early form of harm reduction, balancing toxins with binders in a deadly dance of trial and error. The most haunting clue lies in Xia Huang's final writings. Days before his death, he penned an encrypted message later found buried with him. The true pill consumes the preparer. Some scholars interpret this as confession, that he knew the cost of immortality work. Others believe it hints at a final, undiscovered formula where the alchemist's own transformed body became the ultimate ingredient. His tomb, excavated in 2009, contained a jade vial holding residue testing positive for gold nanoparticles suspended in mercury. A mixture cutting-edge research now shows can temporarily stimulate cellular regeneration, albeit at catastrophic toxicity. Was Xia Huang a deluded mystic or a visionary pushing science's boundaries? His legacy straddles both. Centuries before modern medicine, he documented chemical reactions still studied today, from sulfide sublimation to alloy synthesis. His encrypted recipes challenge us to reconsider where brilliance ends and recklessness begins, and whether the pursuit of immortality might be humanity's oldest, most dangerous experiment. The real secret of his pills isn't how they failed, but how close they came to revealing truths about life, death, and the price of transcending both. The Yuan dynasty should have been at its zenith after Kublai Khan's death. His empire stretched from the Pacific to the Black Sea, and his descendants stood ready to inherit this colossal legacy. Yet within decades, the ruling line descended into chaos, with 8 emperors ascending the throne in just 26 years. Most shockingly, 5 of them died within months of taking power, their reigns cut short by what court historians vaguely called sudden illnesses. But the whispers of the time told a far darker tale, one of poisoned cups, smothered sleepers, and a throne so drenched in blood that it seemed cursed. Take the case of Emperor Yasun Temur, who ruled for a mere 5 months in 1328. Official records claim he succumbed to a fever, But Persian ambassador Rashid al-Din's secret dispatches describe something far more sinister. The night before his death, Yesun Temur reportedly drank Arak liquor gifted by his chancellor Bayan, who then seized control of the imperial guard. Even more damning are the palace kitchen logs from that era, discovered in the 1990s, showing sudden orders for large quantities of white honey, a known euphemism for arsenic in Yuan court documents. The pattern repeated with Emperor Jayatu Khan, whose reign lasted 8 months before ending with symptoms matching aconite poisoning, numbness, vomiting, and a telltale blue tinge to the skin described by his horrified physicians. The true architect of this carnage may have been El-Temur, a warlord who dominated the court through puppet emperors. Mongolian chronicles depict him presiding over coronations like a butcher selecting livestock, eliminating any heir who showed independent thought. His methods weren't always crude poison. Some emperors met their end through subtler means. Emperor Rinchunbul allegedly died from exhaustion after being forced to participate in non-stop ritual ceremonies, while his successor was conveniently struck by lightning during a hunting trip organized by El-Temur's allies. Behind these personal vendettas lay a systemic rot. The Yuan dynasty, unlike its Chinese predecessors, never established clear succession rules, leaving each transition open to violent power struggles. Kublai's descendants split into factions, those favoring continued Mongol traditions versus those embracing Chinese administrative methods. This ideological divide turned lethal, with poisoned tea allegedly served during debates about imperial examinations. Archaeologists excavating a Yuan-era noble tomb in Inner Mongolia recently found a set of jade teacups with residue testing positive for strychnine, their bases inscribed with characters translating to "for the virtuous and unyielding." The most haunting evidence comes not from the victims but the survivors. When Emperor Toghon Temur finally broke the cycle of assassinations, he did so by employing Tibetan monks as full-time food tasters and installing ventilation shafts in his bedchamber to prevent suffocation attempts. His paranoid reforms reveal what it took to survive the Yuan throne, turning the imperial palace into a fortress where even the heir was suspect. The dynasty's missing heirs left behind more than empty tombs. They created a blueprint for how absolute power, when unchecked by tradition or law, can devour its own future. The Great Wall snakes across northern China like a dragon's backbone, but beneath its iconic ramparts lies a hidden network far more complex than most realize. For centuries, local legends whispered of secret tunnels winding beneath the wall, used by Ming Dynasty soldiers to move undetected between watchtowers or launch surprise attacks on Mongol raiders. Historians long dismissed these stories as folklore until, in 2018, LiDAR scans revealed anomalies near the Gubeku section. Perfectly straight, man-made corridors buried 30 feet below the surface, some wide enough for 5 men to march abreast. These weren't natural fissures, they were engineered passages with ventilation shafts and hidden exits, confirming that China's most famous fortification had a clandestine underbelly. One tunnel system near Jinshanling shows just how sophisticated these subterranean routes were. Archaeologists found charred timbers and arrow slits, suggesting the passages doubled as emergency bunkers during sieges. Even more intriguing were the markings on the walls, not just tactical diagrams, but rows of tally scratches that might have tracked patrol movements or stored supplies. The real revelation came when researchers mapped these tunnels against historical battle records. At least 3 documented Ming victories against Mongol forces occurred near tunnel exits, hinting at coordinated ambushes where soldiers seemed to materialize from the earth itself. But the tunnel's purpose wasn't purely military. Recent excavations uncovered fragments of blue and white porcelain and copper cache inside chambers, suggesting they also served as smuggling routes for merchants evading customs. This black market trade might explain why early Qing Dynasty maps deliberately omitted the tunnels, not to protect strategic secrets, but to stifle illicit commerce. The most puzzling discovery, a sealed chamber near Huangyogwan containing rusted iron spheres filled with gunpowder, their fuses still intact. These primitive landmines were likely rigged to collapse tunnels during invasions, proving the Ming were willing to sacrifice their own hidden infrastructure rather than let it fall into enemy hands. What's astonishing isn't just the tunnel's existence, but their sheer ambition. The longest confirmed passage stretches nearly 2 miles, with stepped sections allowing horses to descend safely. Engineering this underground network required knowledge of groundwater levels and seismic stability that shouldn't have existed 600 years ago. Some scholars theorize the Ming repurposed ancient cave systems dug during the Qin Dynasty, while others point to surviving scrolls describing earth borer machines that could cut through bedrock. Either way, the tunnels rewrite our understanding of the wall. It wasn't just a barrier, but a multi-layered defense system where every stone above ground may have had a shadow below. The greatest mystery remains how much is still undiscovered. Lidar can't penetrate all soil types, and many remote sections of the wall have never been scanned. Local farmers still report finding strange bricked-up openings that vanish into hillsides after heavy rains. If even a fraction of these lead to intact tunnels, China's most iconic landmark might be hiding chapters of history we've only begun to uncover. What other secrets lie buried beneath the Great Wall, waiting for the right storm or the right technology to reveal them? Buried deep beneath the patina of centuries, the bronze vessels of the Xia Dynasty hold a secret modern science still can't crack. These intricate ritual cauldrons, some weighing over a ton, were cast with such perfection that their ghostly green surfaces still gleam with cryptic inscriptions after 3,000 years. But here's the haunting part. Many of these masterpieces are now deteriorating in museum cases at alarming speeds, their surfaces flaking away as conservators race to unravel an alloy formula lost to time. What made Xia bronze so resilient for millennia, only to crumble now under our care? The mystery begins with the vessel's composition. While modern brass contains around 88% copper and 12% zinc, Xia bronze's blended copper with tin and something else, an elusive third ingredient that gave them unparalleled strength and vibrancy. Ancient texts refer to it as the black powder of the Western Mountains, a substance scholars once assumed was lead, but advanced spectrometry tells a different story. Scans of intact vessels reveal trace amounts of meteoric iron, along with minerals like malachite and cassiterite, ingredients that shouldn't work together under conventional metallurgy. Even more baffling, the alloy's molecular structure shows evidence of thermal cycling, a process where the metal was repeatedly heated and cooled during casting to align its crystalline lattice. This technique wouldn't be rediscovered in the West until the Industrial Revolution. Attempts to replicate the formula have led to eerie failures. In 2019, a team at Peking University used period-accurate clay molds and local ores to recreate a ritual wine vessel. Though visually identical, their replica developed stress fractures within months, while the original sat beside it unscathed. The difference: ancient artisans might have exploited natural impurities in their ores, arsenic or antimony, traces that inadvertently strengthened the metal. Another theory points to the water used for quenching. Xia workshops were often built near sacred springs, and recent tests show water from Yingxu's ancient wells contains unique mineral profiles that could have altered the bronze crystallization. The most pressing question isn't just how they made it, but why it's failing now. Since the 1970s, conservators have noted accelerated corrosion on vessels exposed to modern air, particularly in humid climates. Some speculate that centuries of burial in alkaline soil created a stable patina now destabilized by pollution. Others blame museum lighting, which emits ultraviolet wavelengths never encountered in tombs. The truth might lie in the alloy's very perfection. Xia bronzes were designed to resist earthly decay for ritual purposes, but no one anticipated they'd spend millennia underground only to face 21st century environments. Perhaps the greatest clue comes from an unexpected source, the vessel's inscriptions themselves. Some bear glyphs interpreted as fire and wind obey the smith, possibly referencing a lost quenching technique involving controlled oxidation. Modern experiments show that exposing hot bronze to specific smoke compounds like those from burning mulberry wood mentioned in oracle bone texts can create a protective carbon layer. But without the exact ritual context, these methods remain half-guesses. The Shang bronzes now sit at a crossroads between past and present, their whispered secrets just beyond our grasp. Each flake of corrosion carries away not just metal, but a piece of humanity's earliest dialogue between art, science, and the divine. As scientists frantically document these objects before they degrade further, we're left with a humbling realization. Some ancient knowledge wasn't just advanced, it was so finely tuned to its world that removing it from that context might mean losing it forever. The real lesson of these vessels isn't how to make better bronze, but how much we still have to learn from the hands that shaped them. In the shadowy corridors of the Ming Dynasty's Forbidden City, whispers spread of eunuchs who refused to stay dead. These weren't ghost stories, they were plausible conspiracies where high-ranking castrated officials allegedly staged elaborate deaths to escape imperial wrath, only to resurface under new identities and continue pulling the strings of power. One particularly chilling case centers around Wei Zhongxian, the notorious eunuch who dominated Emperor Changqi's court in the 1620s. Officially, Wei committed suicide when his patron emperor died, his body publicly displayed as proof. Yet provincial records from Fujian describe a mysterious Master Wei appearing in a remote monastery months later, a man with a high-pitched voice, missing genitalia, and an uncanny knowledge of court affairs. The logistics of such a deception reveal just how powerful these eunuch networks were. Ming burial customs required senior officials to be interred in sealed coffins after elaborate funerals, but eunuchs controlled the palace's mortuary bureaucracy. A well-placed bribe could swap a body, while ashes in an urn could belong to anyone. Eunuch factions had strongholds across China, Buddhist temples staffed by former palace servants, merchant guilds run by their adopted sons, creating perfect hideouts for deceased schemers. The infamous Wang Zhen, blamed for the Tumu crisis disaster in 1449, was said to have faked his death by substituting a mutilated prisoner's corpse in his armor. Years later, a traveler's journal describes meeting a one-eyed monk at Wu Tai-shan who spoke fluent Mongolian and cursed the Zhengtong emperor by name, details only someone intimately familiar with court politics would know. What makes these accounts more than just rumors, the Ming bureaucracy's own contradictions? When the Hongzhi emperor ordered a purge of corrupt eunuchs in 1488, at least 3 high-ranking targets reportedly died under suspiciously similar circumstances, drowning accidents with no witnesses. Later investigations found their supposed graves empty, yet no one dared question the findings. Even more damning are the tribute records from Nanjing's eunuch retirement homes, which list pensions being paid to men officially deceased. Was this clerical error or proof of a system rigged to protect its own? The most tantalizing evidence comes from forensic archaeology. In 2014, researchers examining a Ming-era eunuch tomb in Hebei made a bizarre discovery. The skeleton inside showed signs of having been castrated post-mortem, with knife marks inconsistent with professional palace procedures. The hip bones also suggested the individual had walked with a pronounced limp, yet historical records described the tomb's occupant as an athletic horseman. This raised an unsettling possibility. Someone had buried a decoy, perhaps a convict or servant, to cover their tracks. Perhaps the ultimate irony is how these conspiracies backfired on the Ming Dynasty itself. As trust in official reports eroded, emperors grew increasingly paranoid, relying on secret police and arbitrary purges that destabilized the regime. The Wanli emperor allegedly kept a personal ledger tracking eunuch ghosts, convinced his own officials were manipulating him from beyond the grave. In the end, these phantom eunuchs, whether real or imagined, became symbols of a system so corrupt that not even death could be taken at face value. Their legends endure as a warning. When power concentrates in the hands of those invisible by design, the truth becomes as malleable as the stories told by those who survived to rewrite them. The Mongol conqueror who forged an empire stretching from the Pacific to the Caspian Sea lies somewhere beneath the windswept steppes of Mongolia, deliberately hidden, deliberately forgotten. Genghis Khan's final wish was as audacious as his life: to vanish without a trace, his burial site unmarked and undiscovered. 8 centuries later, that wish remains unbroken, despite drones, satellites, and genetic testing scouring the landscape for clues. The search for his tomb isn't just an archaeological puzzle, it's a collision of cutting-edge science and enduring taboos, where every technological breakthrough must contend with the weight of tradition. Modern expeditions begin with a paradox. Historical accounts describe Genghis Khan's funeral procession in 1227 as a meticulously orchestrated secret. Slaves who dug the grave were executed by the escorting soldiers, who were in turn killed by a second wave of executioners to erase all witnesses. Yet these very precautions left faint traces in the record. The secret history of the Mongols hints the burial occurred near the sacred Burkhan Koldun mountain, where Genghis once hid from enemies. Satellite imaging has identified subtle terrain anomalies in this region, rectangular depressions too precise to be natural, possibly marking collapsed tunnels or ceremonial platforms. Ground-penetrating radar detected subterranean voids near the Onon River, one large enough to hold a chamber fit for a Kogan. But here's where science meets immovable tradition. Local herders refused to guide archaeologists to these sites, fearing the curse promised by Mongol law, that disturbing the conqueror's rest would unleash catastrophe. The most compelling lead emerged from an unexpected source: genetics. In 2014, a survey of male lineages in former Mongol territories revealed a cluster of nearly identical Y chromosomes scattered from Kazakhstan to Korea, direct descendants of Genghis or his close male relatives. By mapping their ancestral migration paths, researchers pinpointed a convergence zone in the Kentiai Mountains. Drones equipped with LiDAR soon mapped a hidden circular structure there, its dimensions matching descriptions of imperial funerary enclosures. But when a joint Mongolian-Japanese team prepared to investigate, protests erupted. For many Mongols, the search itself is sacrilege. The Khan's spirit, they believe, chose obscurity to protect the land. Even collecting soil samples is seen as a violation. Technology offers less invasive alternatives. Multispectral satellite imagery has identified vegetation patterns near Burkhan Koldun that suggest ancient soil disturbance. Plants growing over buried structures absorb nutrients differently, creating spectral ghost prints visible from space. In 2019, a team using muon tomography, which images dense objects with cosmic rays, detected a high-density anomaly beneath a riverbank, possibly a stone-lined tomb. Yet without physical verification, these remain tantalizing maybes. The greatest obstacle isn't technological but philosophical. Genghis Khan's burial was designed to defy discovery, his legacy meant to live through empire, not a tomb. Modern Mongolia celebrates him as a unifying figure, but many argue that respecting his anonymity is the ultimate tribute. The few who have dared trespass, like a rogue 2005 expedition that allegedly smuggled artifacts from a potential site, faced fierce backlash. Perhaps the tomb's true power lies in its absence, a void that mirrors the boundless ambition of the man who conquered half the world only to insist on dissolving back into it. Until tradition and technology find common ground, Genghis Khan's final victory may remain ensuring no one ever learns where he rests. Among the greatest intellectual tragedies of human history, few rival the vanishing of the Yongle Encyclopedia, a Ming Dynasty masterpiece designed to preserve all knowledge, only to become a ghost haunting the margins of history. Commissioned by the Yongle Emperor in 1403, This 11,000-volume compendium aimed to gather every significant Chinese text on astronomy, medicine, warfare, and philosophy into a single luminous archive. Yet today, less than 4% survives, its remnants scattered like whispers in a storm. The question isn't just why it disappeared, but whether its destruction was accident or agenda. Recent discoveries suggest something darker than neglect. While fires and wars claimed portions over centuries, forensic analysis of surviving pages reveals disturbing patterns. Certain volumes on alchemy and maritime expeditions show evidence of deliberate excision, entire sections sliced from their bindings with surgical precision. Even stranger, some surviving fragments contain marginalia in a distinct vermilion ink, believed to be the personal annotations of the Jia Emperor, who ordered a complete recopying of the encyclopedia in the 1500s. Cross-referencing these notes with palace records paints an unsettling picture. Pages mentioning Zheng, his voyages to Africa, or formulas for gunpowder compounds were systematically removed during the recopying process, their contents deemed unfit for preservation. The most tantalizing clue emerged in 2019, when researchers at Peking University analyzed ultraviolet reflections on a surviving astronomy volume. Beneath layers of ink, they detected faint traces of scraped-away text describing celestial events matching records of a massive solar storm in 1408, an event contemporary officials interpreted as heaven's disapproval of Yongel's rule. This raises the chilling possibility that the encyclopedia wasn't just censored, but actively purged of content threatening imperial legitimacy. Yet the mystery deepens with the discovery of a merchant's diary from Nanjing's 15th century foreign quarter. Buried in its pages was a claim that a cache of intact encyclopedia volumes had been smuggled to a Buddhist monastery in Yunnan, hidden inside hollow statues of Luohan. When archaeologists investigated the described site in 2017, they found empty niches and ash residue rich in lead, a telltale sign of deliberate burning. Local monks' oral histories speak of a midnight raid by imperial guards during the Qin Dynasty, who allegedly burned the texts while chanting purification rites. The encyclopedia's fate mirrors China's paradoxical relationship with knowledge, a civilization that pioneered printing and record-keeping, yet repeatedly sanitized its own history. Those surviving fragments now sit in temperature-controlled vaults, their missing pages a silent testament to the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the greatest mysteries aren't about what survives, but what someone powerful made sure we'd never know. The Yongle Encyclopedia's real legacy may be the void it left behind, an absence that forces us to question how much of history is shaped not by what's written, but by what's erased. From vanished dynasties to poisoned honey, from emperors who disappeared into thin air to alchemists who dared to cheat death, these mysteries aren't just footnotes in history, they're seismic cracks in the foundation of our understanding. Think about it, every unanswered question forces us to reconsider what we thought we knew. The Xia Dynasty's elusive existence challenges the very origins of Chinese civilization. The Terracotta Army's silent faces remind us how much we still don't comprehend about Qin Shi Huang's ambition, and those empty pages of Empress Wu Zetian's steel. They speak louder than any inscription ever could, proof that sometimes the most powerful statements are the ones left deliberately unsaid. What ties these riddles together isn't just their intrigue, it's how they redefine history as a living, breathing puzzle rather than a static record. The Great Wall's hidden tunnels reveal ancient engineering genius we're only now uncovering. The missing treasure ships of Zheng he hint at maritime might that could have rewritten global trade routes centuries earlier. And Genghis Khan's deliberately lost tomb. It's the ultimate defiance, a conqueror who reshaped the world, insisting on vanishing without a trace, as if to say even death couldn't contain his legacy. Now it's your turn. Which of these mysteries haunts you the most? Do you think the Xia Dynasty was real, or a legend crafted for legitimacy? Could the lost library of the Forbidden City still await discovery? Drop your theories in the comments. We're all detectives here, piecing together fragments of the past. And if you're hungry for more deep dives into history's unsolved enigmas, hit that subscribe button. Because the truth isn't just buried in textbooks, it's hiding in plain sight, waiting for curious minds like yours to uncover it. History isn't a closed book, it's a map with half the landmarks missing. And that's what makes the search so thrilling.